Welcome to Awake with Jevon. My name is Jevon, and I have today Marianne Rogers, a past life regressionist and spiritual intuitive that I've had personal experience with. And let me just say, Marianne, when you start talking, there's something very soothing about your voice. I like listening to you.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you. I
It
don't hear that. I can't say I hear that too much, but all right.
I don't know if it's the tone of your voice or just kind of who you are, but it's nice to hear your voice again. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, what this show is about, it's about being awake and discovering guides that point the way. And you are in the business of helping people rediscover, not discover, but rediscover who they are, where they're from, what they're doing, the nature of this game that most people call life. And wow, what a crazy thing that we're doing right now. And in the context of being awake, my question for you that I like to start off with is, what does it mean to be awake to you?
That's a massive question. I think we could talk for an hour about that.
I might interrupt you if you go for an hour, but that's
wow. Stop me if I do. Being awake. Well, some could say we're not, because we're in this dream. We think we're awake, or we're in the process of awakening from the illusion of separation. So, I am a student of A Course in Miracles, so I adhere to that. It's really a non-dualistic teaching, so it's saying that there's only God. So these are the sort of concepts that I'm into these days, is this pure non-dualism. It's hard to live by because we're in this dream and you're over there and I'm over here, and it appears that we're separate, and everything in the dream tells us something else. Right. But I believe there's only God dreaming. And so the awakening processes is we're really one, but we're all waking up. And it appears that we do that at separate times. Mm-hmm. Now we have to talk in dualistic terms like time and space. So it appears that we're doing it, you may be doing it faster than me. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we're all going to wake up eventually. It might take a million more years in time and space in the linear story that we tell ourselves.
Right.
So
we're God.
But I think in terms that people could understand. Sorry to cut you off. What were you going to ask?
Cut me off.
I'm real good at doing that, so don't give me any license.
Cut away.
Yeah. I think, that's in lofty terms, like there's only God. Okay, that's great. Well, how do I get there? How do I get into that awareness? So I think in a incremental terms, it is an increased state of awareness of your true nature.
Yes.
So coming out, so it's sort of an incremental, has to be an increment. So we have to wake up gently. We can't just be like shaking a baby that's having a nightmare awake. You wouldn't do that. That would be cruel. That would be startling. So to the ego that's very invested in this fearful story here, it has to be a gentle awakening, or we'd become terrified. Mm-hmm. So how we do that is and it appears that we sort of wake up in these levels, like I'm waking up to the truth about the world, or I'm waking up to the truth about this story in the dream, politics. You could say you're waking up to the truth behind this party or that party. Mm-hmm. People think they're waking up like to that, but no, you're still within the dream context. So
anytime, so basically anytime that I'm separate from anything, I'm still in the dream.
Yeah. So we're still here. We still appear to be here as we're undoing the separation nightmare, you could say, which is definitely how it feels right now. You
So
know,
let's
which
let's talk
right.
about this. There's an ultimate waking up, which is
Mhm.
inevitable.
Right.
That's my words, but I think that
Yeah, I think so.
the
Yeah.
waking up is inevitable. Now, it may not happen in a lifetime. It may not happen in lifetimes. And as a past life regressionist, you've seen people not waking up for lifetimes. Uh,
Right. Right. Yeah,
and
and myself too.
well, yeah, this most of us, right? Uh,
Yeah, yeah. And
even
it's
if,
not everybody's goal. Some people are quite happy in the dream. You know,
yeah,
that not everybody wants to wake up. They
like the
like it.
movie The Matrix. Like, can you put me back into the Matrix? I miss the steak. I miss the
Well, once you start waking up, you know, you care, you want peace, and it feels better to be more of who you really are, because that's part of the awakening process, is that revelation of this the true self, right?
yeah.
So where was I going with that?
I don't know, but it sounded good.
Anyway, what were you? What, were you, what did you ask me? What were you going to ask?
I have no idea what I was going to ask you. However, let's talk about. Uh, we'll chunk this down into playing the game. How about that? Because there's
Okay.
the inevitable waking up, which is going to happen to everybody eventually, uh,
Yeah.
and it may not be in our cards that it happens now. But we can also play the game of the illusion of separate personality better, right? We can play it more
Mm.
peacefully. Uh,
Yeah. Yep.
so what would be what does that look like? And tell me, as a past life regressionist or a spiritual intuitive, how do you help people? uh I keep on saying game, but it's kind of like a game that we're playing with ourselves.
Yeah. You
If
could
we
call it
are
that.
ultimately the same one, if we are
Yep.
ultimately God dreaming that we're us so we can have a separate experience, how do we have this experience thinking we're separate more peacefully? Is that possible? Or is that what we're doing here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The key is forgiveness. And this is not your parents, grandparents' forgiveness. This is quantum forgiveness, which the Course talks about, is remembering that you're dreaming and then forgiving it from that place, like nothing ever happened. So it's much different to, um, oh, you really hurt me. You're a guilty bastard. And now I'm going to be charitable and forgive you.
Yeah,
That's the old Newtonian idea of forgiveness,
I'm gonna
right?
call that bad thing good and pretend
And so, sorry.
yeah, I'm gonna call that bad thing good and just pretend like it's good. It's like,
Yeah, it's sort of like, you really hurt me, but I'm going to do something nice for you and forgive it. Whereas the quantum forgiveness, or true forgiveness, from a Course perspective, is, look, I'm dreaming this up. I'm doing this to myself. Nothing's ever really happened. You are me. And so, do I want to hold you guilty because I'm actually holding myself guilty, because we are one and the same.
mm,
So I'm doing it to really release myself. So every time I extend forgiveness, you know, I'm releasing myself from the illusion. So I'm actually undoing the illusion by using forgiveness. But the trick is, you got to remember you're dreaming. So it's sort of like, um, otherwise you're just going to make it real and reinforce the illusion. You're not actually undoing it. So if I dreamt last night that you killed me, and I woke up today and I was really pissed off at you,
right.
right? That's sort of what we're doing in the dream. I'm sorry, it really happened. You really hurt me. You made
Yeah.
me kill. Killing might be a bit extreme, but to
You
serve a point,
you
if
wake
you
up and
woke
be
up,
like, why did you do that to me? And then you'll get a
yeah,
reaction.
and then you'll be like, oh wait, I dreamt that whole thing up. Now it's much easier to forgive you from a place of, oh, it was just in my mind, than you really did it. You really did something. So if we can go, so I have to go there. This is what works for me, is going, I dreamt it up. Now I can forgive it from a place of it never happened, because actually I need you to get home, because I need to see, it's too painful for me to see my stuff in me. I have to project it out on the screen, in the movie, in the game, onto you, so that it's outside of me, because guilt feels so gross that I have to like project it out there and put it on you. So now you're guilty and I'm free.
Mm.
But really it's just keeping the whole thing going. So you know, and use this year, you know, use this year for forgiveness. Boy, if there's not a ton of opportunities, and you know, I'm as passionate about anybody else, even though I know I'm in a dream scenario, I still get into the rhetoric of the day and which side, you know, I have a side and a team and I hope certain person wins. And, you know, I'm into that too. But I have to remember, like, I'm doing this to myself. I'm making these figures up. They're in my dream and I need them to be wrong. And it's the classic victim story, you know, the good guy and the bad guy. And, you know, a victim to this dream. And I'm doing it to myself. That's the irony. So I'm doing it to myself, and I think I'm a victim here, and these people have done me wrong, and poor me, and that's just going to keep me stuck, and that's going to get me coming right back into another body to be a victim over again. Now, I know that is very similar to my pattern in other lifetimes, is this victim story. Like, I'm always sort of this martyr in these other lifetimes, often, you know, trying to go for good, and then I get bumped off my path or something. So now it's like, okay, let's stop doing that. Let's stop being a victim to everything and everyone and the economy and the this and the that and the neighbors, and, you know, it goes on and on forever.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, see it as what it is. It's actually, we're trying to wake ourselves up, but we don't really know how to do it. So it comes in increments. You can't wake up all at once. It has to be a bit of a process. And you just start undoing. All you really have to do is forgive whatever is pissing you off on any given day. Is remember, I'm dreaming, I'm doing this to myself, and my thoughts are causing me to suffer. I'm keeping myself in hell, and it's only by my thoughts. Like, we can suffer incredibly with one thought. We can go right to hell on this one thought. It shouldn't be this way. It should be like this. If this person was different, I'd be happy. All these things, right? Now, if I can just look at that one thought, why am I suffering today, and bring it to the light and see it again based on, am I in heaven or hell right now? Am I torturing myself with these thoughts? Am I scaring myself, or am I liberating myself? Am I remembering the truth about where I really am? So we talk about the dream, but the good news is where I really am is I'm still in the mind of God. Or I'm still at home in love. I've never really left. I've only left in dreams. So that we've got to remember that, because if we just go, I'm dreaming all the time, then it's like, it can get a bit meaningless, because it's just a dream. What does it matter? Well, it does matter, because of where I really am. And I just want to get back to that in my thoughts. Starts with thoughts. Like, you can go right back there today. You don't have to wait to do some long process of waking up. You can just go there right now. That's the beauty of it. Awakening is, it could be now. And even though I'm not completely awake, like, I've still got the ego to undo, I can still find peace in this moment, because I remember the truth about me, and I remember where I really am.
Yeah,
so
the course, right? And the course starts in the workbook anyway, leading that process of how all these things that we think are things are just thoughts about the things, you know, that
right.
whatever.
Yeah, it's your thought about something.
The table means nothing. All these things that I think have meaning are really just meaningless, and I put meaning on them by my thoughts.
Yeah.
And how and then it ends the workbook by talking about how our brother is our salvation,
Right.
and through forgiveness we get to experience our salvation by our brother being our salvation. How does that tie into what you just said?
Yeah, our brother is our salvation, because we need that mirror. We need each other. And even though we trigger each other, upset each other, all that, it's actually revealing our own hidden hates about ourselves. It's the things we don't like in us. So I have to blame you for it, or put it on you, and then I can see it, because it's too painful to see it in me. So that's why we kind of need each other to be these mirrors, even though it's like, you know, we can really rub each other the wrong way, especially in this sort of climate we're in right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, what you could do as a radical experiment is take someone you really don't like, probably not hard to find right now, and list everything about them you don't like, and be petty and judgmental, and just let it rip. And then see it and then once you're done with that list, go back and see where you might find that in yourself. and then forgive it in yourself. And then that person probably won't trigger you as much because they're actually just showing you where the call for love is in yourself, where there's a deficit in me, where I'm actually judging myself. So all my judgments are actually how I feel about myself.
Yeah.
And some people have a lot of judgments and some people have less judgments. Depends
And if I
what
didn't
kind of
have
lives
those,
you've had, what you've gone through.
if I didn't have those judgments or stuck thought forms, I would just look around seeing beautiful expressions of God, I would assume.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So as we undo that, that's what we're making room for. That's what we're doing. So it might seem like you're peeling the onion forever, but if you really did the forgiveness lessons the right way, in terms of remember, it's just an illusion.
Yeah.
It's like going to a movie and you think that, remember, like, you ever gone to a movie and you're in some action movie or some thriller and you forget you're in a movie. You forget that nothing can really come through the screen. Or 3D would be even better example because it's like it's really coming at you. And you sort of move back, you got your glasses on and you forget, oh, that's right, it's just a movie.
Right.
It's only your interpretation. It's only that you get upset by the thriller or the horror that's the problem. It's not the screen. The screen, you could go up and touch it. It's benign. It's very much like that in the dream. It's just what we give meaning to it. Like, you're having a great year. That's the meaning you've given this year. Other people could be suicidal about this year because that's what they've given, that they've given all their power away and said, this year sucks. This is the worst year ever. And then you got somebody else going, this is the best year I've ever, right? So it's all about meaning.
And my good year had to do, and it's true, we were talking before we started recording. Yeah, I've had one of the most profound years of my life. But for me, it had to do all about what we're talking about, forgiving, which is synonymous to me in letting go. And what I'm letting go is my story about life is. And as I've let it go, it's been this beautiful open space, like a void almost, but it's immediately filled up with this abundant love of God. And it's really still, which makes me personally uncomfortable because I'm very addicted to activity. And it's been a beautiful space though. There's something new has been nurturing and growing through me in that seeming void. It's not a void, but it seemed like a void at first.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that because it's similar to how I felt this year too. Like, it's not an outward success that I'd be excited about anyway. It's the internal shifts that have happened. And I do think for many of us, we needed a really unique time to, simply, even for some, just be forced to stop, like forced to slow down. It's like, well, just take this year off. Is sort of how it feels. And know it, like, no offense to anybody that's battled with illness or, losing their jobs, anything like that. But,
no.
It's like whatever happens in the world, there's always a gift. There's always something in it. Like, even when it seems, that whole silver lining thing, I guess. So that it gives me confidence and not worry so much about, like, say, who gets in or how the world appears, because, there's a vibration you can live in that doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't matter. To some extent, you create your own environment. You live in your own.
Yeah. Tell me about vibration more.
Field.
How does that affect us as a normal Western human? Like, we are putting out different vibrations with different emotional states, different like thought patterns, like when we're thinking about certain things and how we focus, whether we're holding on to grudges or not. I mean, is that, I'm trying to translate that because I think
definitely. I think we kind of jump around a bit based on what we're focusing on, exactly what you're saying. Like, my energy feels a bit lower today because I got sucked into that debate last night, which I kind of wish I hadn't. And then I had to sort of pick myself up again this morning and go, you know what? It doesn't matter. because I live in my own frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, every time there's a recession, for some reason, we do better. I don't know what happens. But it reminded me, like, because I don't live based on, what they're going to do for me. I take responsibility for my own life. I can't live by, oh, are they going to feed me? No, I'm going to feed myself. Like, right? That sort of mentality. Like, I can't live dependent. So, you know,
Yeah.
it definitely is about focus, because at any given time, like I said, we can focus on heaven or hell, the light or the darkness. There's plenty of darkness to look at. There's plenty of woe is me, whatever story. But it takes, and I do think being in the world, that is sort of a default setting of the ego. Even though our natural state is love, peace, and joy, if you don't choose that, if you don't choose those things on purpose, the ego is just going to run the show and take over and look at this and look at that and those people and that whole thing.
Yeah. So
So
we have a
it does
default.
take
We
the
have a
choice.
default of like separation. Is that what you're saying? Like if you're not intentional,
Yeah.
the default is.
Yeah, the default is the fear paradigm that,
Yeah.
the matrix, because that's what we created when we split from God, or thought we did, in dreams. I'm talking, not in reality, but we think we left God, and we made this fearful world, and where God wasn't really welcome, and it was the story of separation that the ego could hide out in. So that's just based on, that's the story of the course, and how the split happened. In truth, it never happened. We've never left. We're just hallucinating. But look, it doesn't matter what you can wake up. I'll give you a great example. Mother Teresa was awake. She undid the cycle of birth and death because she saw everybody with the eyes of love. So compassion, love is the fastest way to raise your vibration, and it's the fastest way out of this dream illusion, is to see your brother as yourself, because in him you'll either lose yourself or find yourself, because that is the reflection. So sometimes you just have to put yourself in that love vibration. It's not always going to happen naturally without some focus. And so it's like, I'm just going to make an intention. I'm not going to wait for the feeling. I'm going to set an intention to love and to be compassionate and to be kind, because we're all going through quite an intense battle.
Yeah.
Even if we're not, we're in this together. We're in this collectively. So
That's
we
right.
are, that's all anybody deserves, is love and compassion. Even if they're on a different party and a different side to you, that's all they deserve, because it makes sense based on where they stand. It makes sense to them,
Perfect.
their view, or all of it, their life experience, how they operate in the world. Even people that act crazy, if you really knew their story, you wouldn't judge. We wouldn't judge.
Oh yeah, so much going on that we don't know, right? Not only
Yeah.
chemically and historically and genetically, but karmically, we're coming into this world with stuff and decisions that we don't remember.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. And I had that feeling this year, like, I signed up for this crap, like, and then Spirit gave me like a download about it, and said that we've agreed to this, and that this needs to happen to alchemize and kind of reach down and get to these deeper levels of fear for many old souls, to be able to transmute that energy. Like, we wouldn't, if you don't get to the fear, if it doesn't transmute, if it's not able to come to the surface and be forgiven and let go and re-alchemize back in, right, or cleared out of the field, then it's just a block. It's just another block to the awareness of love's presence. And that's what we're waking up to.
So
That all we are is love, all there is love. But it's just a funny way to do it, because it's like, in this shit show, go find the pony, find the love in this. It's challenging.
Pony in here somewhere. That's right.
It's challenging, but the journey's in. It's not, you're not going to find it on your television screen.
No,
that's for sure. No. The journey, the pieces within, and until we find inner peace, we're not going to fix the world. It's an individual. If everybody just focused on their own forgiveness lessons and their own inner peace, we'd all be awake. and
Yeah.
there would be no problems. But
And what if the world was
everybody
working
would find out.
perfectly
What's
as
that?
a catalyst machine to help us to choose? It's like perfectly to, to be the mirror.
Yeah,
What if that
yes.
was?
So I know it's an intense time, and for some people, they're just trying to get through it. They're just trying to survive it, and that's okay. Like, I'm not saying I don't win the war every day and choose love. Sometimes I get I get sucked right in because, as an old soul, I've got all the stories to go along with all the possible scenarios. So,
Tell me more
you
about
know,
Old Soul. Old Soul versus
so
when
the
we
way
met.
I use,
When
sorry,
we
go
met, you
ahead.
told me that I was not an old soul, but a new soul. You had a different word for it, though. What is it called?
I would say, and you may not be new in terms of young, you may be, I feel with you that you're more of a volunteer here, more of a starseed.
Well,
So I used to say new. I don't say new as much because it could be misinterpreted as a young soul, like immature or unconscious, uncaring, because they can, other regressionists might judge them as such. But I look at it more like there's two main categories that I run into. One is old earth soul, which are just doing the cycle of birth and death hundreds and thousands of times. And we get stuck in the karmic wheel, our old patterns, especially victimhood. That's a big one for old souls. So there's that category. And then I run into a lot of star seeds or newer to earth. So they come here more as volunteers, and they're not necessarily young. They could have spent they're just as old as the rest of us, just not earth based, been in higher frequencies, higher dimensions. And so they come in here to more of a volunteer, as opposed to I would have, even though I would have chosen on some level this incarnation and agreed to certain things in the script, I would have had less choice about it. I would have had to come back to balance, you could say balance my karma, release my patterns, like clear these patterns. So often we do that through repeat. We do the same thing over, but we don't know how to actually clear it unless you go into, I don't think we would consciously, because it's all in the unconscious, so it stays buried. I'll give you an example. In my past life, my most recent life, we're talking in linear terms because we're talking about time and space, so that's how we work here. My past life, I drove off a cliff and died, and I killed a child. In this life, I drove off the road and my best friend died. Why would I repeat that? Like, that sounds insane. Like, why would I? And I saw the whole planning meeting. Now, this was 20 years ago or longer, 30 years ago, I think. I was a teenager. And so the amount of guilt I carried from that life where I accidentally drove off a cliff because I was looking in the rear vision mirror at a toddler, so I was a man in that life. I was like a dad that had his child on the weekends. And I felt very inept, or I didn't feel adequate because I had a little girl and I didn't know how to relate to her, and I wasn't a parent very much, and I was overcompensating. So here I was watching her in the rear vision mirror, and I drive right off the road, and I'm somewhere touristy. Feels like maybe Hawaii or somewhere. I'm up and it's elevated and there's not a lot of good roadways, and this is like the 50s. And I just drive right off the road, and I have so much guilt about ending her life more than mine, because she's like 3, that I don't go into heaven. Like, I don't go into the light. I can't go into the light because I feel so guilty that I've done this thing. And I didn't do it on purpose. But this is the sort of thing that follows us around. And I somehow write into my script that I'll do it again because I'm trying to clear the guilt. But we would never put that together unless we did a regression or was able to, it's taken me a while to put that piece together. Like, why would I repeat that? Because this is the ego's way at trying to fix a problem. It's ridiculous. It's insanity. So this is sort of insane stuff we do to out myself, but
So your ego, this separate identity, follows us after death. Then
It does to an extent because we're still separated. We're still individuals. So heaven, the afterlife, the resting place, it's more like a resting place, a place where you take a break, and then you negotiate your next lifetime. And so we're trying to resolve things, but often we're just like repeat them, write them into the script. Like, I'll do it again, and then this time I'll learn. Like, how would you ever learn that other than, you know, don't drive a car, maybe might be good.
never.
But it took me 20 years to allow myself to even be happy because of how guilty I felt. And I didn't know
You're talking
when
this
I,
life.
yeah, in this lifetime. So I didn't know obviously what was happening, but the amount of guilt when that happened and how devastated I was, because I'd already compounded the guilt from the last lifetime. You know, it's like I took that on again when this happened. So whenever we have an overreaction to something that happened that doesn't sort of fit the crime, even though you would say it would be appropriate to feel bad about that, you know. And I fell asleep at the wheel. It's a long story. I was on a 8-hour drive, got lost, had no air conditioning, was overdressed, like got too warm. My friend was asleep. It was a whole thing. Like, it wasn't just total, it was, you know, wasn't total negligence. It wasn't like I was drunk driving or something like that, but it was a whole set of circumstances, and it was written into the script. And I saw her, and so sometimes we do write these crazy things in. And so often when I have clients, I'll ask them, I'll feel into the energy of it. I'll ask if they want to clear their contracts, because we have these contracts, like, I'm going to go through a divorce, or I'm going to get, you know, lose everything, or have a horrible disease, so that I'll learn this XYZ. It's like, just learn it now. You don't have to always learn things through a
So
horror story.
let's
Like, you can
stop there
learn.
before we go
Yeah,
too far here.
yeah.
There's a planning meeting. I want you to talk
Uh-huh.
about that, and then there's contracts that you agree to. We're not talking about you as we know you here. We're talking about you in between lives in this place that is maybe almost heaven, or this other dimension where we're not in a body, we're not incarnate, but we still have an identity as us. We still are separate.
Yeah, yeah. I like that better than ego, because I wouldn't say, because like when you channel souls that are crossed over, they're quite free of ego. They don't really have that, you know. They're always like full of forgiveness. They don't care if their spouse moves on, marry somebody else, like, you know, things that might bug them in their personality here. But yeah, we're still individuated. So on the other side, we do these crazy things where we get these people that are going to drive us nuts, and then we agree to be born into their family.
Wow.
Like, I don't know, or you know, people say because we choose our parents. So yeah, we do, but it's like they have to be an energetic match. So, you know, I was born with a belief that no one cared, so I had parents that would sort of keep that story going, because that was something I was trying to resolve in me. So, you know, it can just, this is why we want to undo the ego, because the ego is pretty nuts, and really at the end of the day it just wants to keep these stories going. It looks like it's trying to help us heal, but it kind of just keeps us entrenched, you know. It really wants to, it acts like it's here to sort of protect us and keep us safe and all that, but it's really trying to keep itself safe, keep
Yep.
itself alive. So yeah, it was interesting to see the planning meeting, because it was like, oh yeah, here are all the characters, that the main characters that have been problematic in my life, and they're all, and I'm begging them to play their role. Like, I'm asking them to play these difficult roles, and they're agreeing, you know, and then they're having their planning meetings, and it all kind of comes together. So to some extent, because we're not back in oneness, we're still in the story. So heaven and earth are both illusory. They're different sides to the same illusory coin. It's still illusion because you're individuated. But oneness is when there's no more need for any of it, and it all disappears as we go back into oneness, which means everyone you've ever loved every animal you've ever loved, all one whole, complete ball of love, so to speak, is the closest we can come to understanding it in our concept, because it's without form and it's just pure bliss. So that's my goal. That's awake. So when we talk about awakening, that's what they really mean, not death, not just leaving your body and going to heaven. That's not it. That's a temporary break between hallucinations. What's a different hallucination?
Right. A 1 degree awake, so that you can go
Yeah,
back to the less awake.
it's nice.
Go
I
back to
mean,
the
it's
workshop.
yeah, it's easy, but the thing about it is you forget. You come in and you forget everything anyway.
Yep. So as a
Yeah.
past life regressionist, this is what you do. You help people to integrate these concepts that often have no real meaning, like forgiveness and love and these kind of things, and help people to see how that's what they're here to do, and why they suffer has to do with those things. I'm kind of putting that
Yeah.
together for what you just
It
said.
usually it usually comes down to self-love. That's what we're really doing, is healing our own concepts of where we judge ourselves. That's a lot of what we're doing.
And you can speed it
Spirit,
up, right?
what's that?
And you can speed it up. Like you can actually talk to somebody's like higher self or higher version of themselves. Correct?
Yeah. Yep.
I would assume that would speed up whatever process that.
Yeah, and that's always good for them to hear too, and realize that they're not their ego. They're more than that. So they're not just the crazy voice in their head. They're actually they're connected to all wisdom, all knowledge. So once you tune into the higher self, problems can get eradicated quite quickly. A lot of people wouldn't know how to do that, but it's just the peaceful observer that is in the background. That's your true self, your higher self, true nature.
Do we have different higher selves, or we all have the same higher self? How's that work?
Well, that's a good question. Um, I think that's where we join. I think that's where we meet. Yeah.
We all have the
But
same
I mean,
higher self.
yeah. Well, if I asked your higher self a question, it would be different. You might probably get a different answer to what I'd get based on your,
Based on my
yeah,
individuation.
just still, yeah, individuated. It would depend what we're asking about, but there's always a truth to it. There's always real wisdom, real truth to the higher self, and it's not so hung up about like what we do and the micro details. It's more about the bigger picture, and the higher self always has a sort of a vibe of, look, just relax, don't worry so much,
Yeah.
right? It's always sort of this feeling of everything's actually okay,
Yeah.
so yeah. But that's a good question. I have to think about that one. I would, I don't know.
Tell me about karma. What is that? Because we mentioned that earlier, and you talked about unraveling. And what is that? And is that part of what we're doing here? Is something to do with karma?
Yeah, I love talking about karma. First of all, it's not punishment. God's not making you, people say like karma's a bitch and all that. It's like, yeah, look, God's not punishing us. It's not like what we have to, we do it to ourselves. If we punish ourselves more than God ever would.
Part of the planning.
Yeah, so yeah, we write this crap in. And we don't have to. You can just say, I just clear my soul contracts. I just clear anything I've might have written into my script that is not in my highest good, that's not fun, that's not joyful.
So
You
we
could
do
say
that?
something very simple. You don't even have to you decide, I just clear it. Just make it a white page. I fill it in myself.
Anybody can do that?
If there's anything that wouldn't, yeah, because you're the boss. So yeah, you can just change. You can change that.
Do you have to be at a certain
neutralize
energetic
it.
place to be able to
No,
make that effective?
no. Just use your intention and just, yeah. And some people could be intuitive enough to go in and look at what they've written, feel into what it is. Is there anything problematic coming up that I've written in that's going to be, that I could learn another way, a gentler way, now that I'm more in an awake place, or more in, not an ego driven, let's figure this out myself way, like more of a, okay, what's the it can be, we can wake up gently and enjoy. That's what the course says. So that's what I'm going with. Gently and enjoy. It doesn't have to be through devastation. We don't have to wake up because we lose everything. It's a classic one where people, you know, the whole midlife crisis, lose everything. People write that stuff in. They don't have to. Don't have to agree to that. So yeah, you just use your intention and just say, okay, I'm going to neutralize or clear anything that's not helpful. Yeah.
I just signed up for that just now.
Okay, good. Yeah, so karma it's just balancing energy, really. And I think it's patterns that we want to clear. So a pattern of victimhood, or I think an easy example would be when we go from victim to victimizer and our lives flip. Like, you know, that can be a cycle for some people. They're either the victim or the perpetrator, and lives can flip. And it sounds like far-fetched, but I guess all of this probably is to some people. And then, so it's about breaking that cycle and not always being either the victim or the attacker. And then, so we want to neutralize that karma. So now we go into more of a peaceful place. We step out of conflict and we just decide, I'm done with that. I'm done with being at war. Because many of us old souls have just been warring for millennia and we're exhausted. Look, and we're still doing it. So it's like you have to make a conscious decision to step out of conflict, and I'm going to renew that one because I've been getting sucked in too. So I'm just going to remind myself to renew that commitment to come out of conflict. And I can be at peace in an insane world. In a warring world, I can still choose my own vibration, my own, what my world's going to be. I have to just go with the flow of the world. I can be in my own thing. But talk about karma, because it's a really good, people get really confused about karma. So the ego would say, look, I've got to come back and make amends and make up for all this stuff. Forgiveness is the fastest way to neutralize karma. It never happened. I'm just dreaming this. It only happened in dreams, really. So I know that, even as a regressionist, I know that these are people's dream lifetimes. You know, to them it was real. To me it was real when I was in it, but just like a dream, it disappears when you wake up. But when you're not awake, you still think you're in it. So the ego would want us to go through all this stuff and jump through all these hoops and prove ourselves and all this. But that's all nonsense. The truth is, none of that is necessary. You can just go right to peace right now, right to heaven right now, and just remember, I'm whole and complete. I'm completely innocent. The only thing I've ever done is dreamed. And no one's really guilty for that. You would have never say someone's guilty of having a nightmare. No, they're just dreaming. So the whole karma thing, it is what people believe. If you think you've got all this karma, some people really believe they have a ton of karma and they think they've got to work it out. Oh, look, you can go that route if you want, but I'm all for easy street. What's the easiest, fastest way? Like, so yeah, don't get too hung up on it. And look, I wrote it into my own script, but I wouldn't have figured that out unless I did what I do. And this coming into this, figured out my own, stuff. So,
do you think the energetic place of the planet, like of the consciousness of the planet or the community, have an impact on how like the scripts that we write before we get here or when we get here? Like you say, let's take the easy street. Well, you know, what if you're born into Genghis Khan's time and I mean, it would be
right
harder then
and this
than
is
now.
this is why we want to undo while we appear to be here, because don't wait till you're born into, that kind of world. Don't wait until, because it's easy. We're in Orange County, we're having a good dream, it's pretty sweet, right? But that doesn't mean in your next life you couldn't wake up and be, have no food, no water, and no parents. So we bounce around. There's no promise that is always a upward trajectory of lives that improve. It's not how it works.
Mm.
So that's why we want to undo it, because just because we might be having a pleasant dream right now doesn't mean it can't change next week, next month, because nightmares have a tendency to do that. But it does ease up as you undo it. It does get easier. There's more peace. There's less stress. You do make progress. The things that used to trigger me don't trigger me as much. Well, this right now might not be the best example, but in general, like, when it's not, the shit's not really hitting the fan, it's like, okay, there's definitely a progress. And that's where you see your progress is, oh yeah, well, this time last year, I was like a completely different person, because you don't act the same way, you don't talk the same way, you don't do anything the same. The shifts are happening.
Tell me, how is this gifting that you have happened? Because it doesn't seem like we all have the ability to be a past life regressionist or a spiritual intuitive, or do we? I mean, are you special, or how did it happen to you? And is it something that is a pre-life thing that has to be?
Well, I do have the ability to see past lives, and I'm a regressionist. So anyone can learn to be a regressionist. And I do think if you really wanted the gift to see past lives, you could give yourself to that. Like, study, learn, be open, ask guides, tune into the Akashic records. I definitely think it's learnable. I was given it like instantaneously in about 2000, was it 15 or 16? I think anyway, back there somewhere, 15. And so it was weird. It was like I never had this before, and then suddenly I could tune into somebody and get a mini movie about their past life. And it started with a girl in a park, and they were doing exposure therapy with this little girl, and she was about, I don't know, quite young, maybe 6 or 7. And she had a phobia of birds. Like, you knew without really being intuitive, like, this girl is terrified of being at this park. It was one of those parks with a little pond and massive birds, like the big geese. And they were doing exposure therapy with her. I knew very quickly, because there was a therapist with a book, and the mother and the little girl, because the little girl was Asian, so the mother and little girl were Asian, white therapist lady with her spreadsheet. And intuitively, and this is before I knew that I could see past lives, and because I was doing this course, and it said you're going to meet your guides and then they're going to give you a gift. And this was the next day, and I go, oh, okay, like, what happened yesterday? So I intuitively knew that not only did she have a fear of birds, but it came from a past life, and it probably was to do with her death in a past life. Like, I could see these birds pecking her on a road, and she was a child in that life and got targeted by these birds, and it led to her death. And so and I'm not somebody that goes up to people. This is very awkward. Like, how do you, break this one down to people? But I knew I had to do it. Like, this is a little girl, and I knew that this is a child, and this is re-traumatizing her. They mean well, no offense to the therapist, whatever, but this was re-traumatizing her back to a past life death. Like, I knew this intuitively, and right away that what had happened, like, I saw the whole thing, and I knew that this was past life related, and they're trying to just fix her in this life with exposure therapy. And she screamed the whole way from the car. She didn't even want to get out of the car. This is a kid that probably wouldn't even go outside. It was really bad. It was a really profound phobia. And here they're bringing her to this park with these massive birds, like adults would be afraid of, right? And so I go up to the lady. And Spirit saying, go for the mother. Don't ignore the therapist. Just go right for the mother. Because look, a mother doesn't care what she's got to do. When a child's in pain, you're going to do whatever you got to do to get that child out of suffering. So I went right for the mother. And I said, look, I can't remember what I said. I think I just said I'm a psychic because I thought, well, this is a psychic ability.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I've got to have some credence. So I think I called myself a psychic at that moment. And I went, well, there is some truth too. Look, I'm a psychic because she didn't know me. And I've never been in that park. And I've never been at that park at that time of day. I had my dogs. I decided to go to a different park. The whole thing was total set up. And I go, look, I'm a psychic. And this is a past life trauma, past life. I keep saying past life problem. You need to find a past life. And I don't really know who she should go to. I just thought a past life person, a past life therapist, or a past life regressionist. And you're re-traumatizing here. Like, this is not going to work. And, I had to just suck it up and go. And the therapist did not like me from the second. It was like, excuse me, we're doing therapy here. So like, she was all up in my grill, but I was just like,
session,
I was totally messing with their session, like, right. And she's trying to give this little girl stars for, getting a step closer to the park. And the kid's like got her hands over her ears and she's screaming bloody murder.
Yeah.
Like, this is not working. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just had to deliver the message.
Right.
And then I had to just go on my way and, started walking my dogs around the park. And they never got any closer to these birds. They kind of sat on this wall. They took a few steps back, I think, and sort of sat on this wall. And I'm like, you know what? I'm the messenger. I can't, what am I going to do? Force them to leave the park? There's nothing I could do.
That's right.
But
get out of here.
It was weird because I was pleased with myself that I actually said something, because to go up to strangers is quite challenging for me in my culture, like, but it was like, I just got to do it. I was just I had chills all over my body. There was no way I could get away with not doing it. Wow. And then, so I felt pleased that I'd said something, but also it felt unsettled because I just worried about this little girl. Like, what happens? Does she find somebody? And I'm just picturing, like, hopefully the mother just went home and Googled, like, and try, because you're going to want to try anything, even if it's not even in your belief system. Suddenly you consider it when it's a kid.
Right.
So the next day when I was doing this home study course, and it said, meet your guides, which I'd already done. And they said, they're going to give you a gift. Well, I felt like they gave me the gift to see past lives. So I do think it's something you could definitely learn or give yourself to, like mediumship. Anybody can learn how to talk to souls that have crossed over. It's not a gift as such. Some people are very good at it because they've practiced. So I don't really see, I used to call these things gifts. I even call my own, because it felt like that. It felt like you were given something. But you can also learn it. Energy healing's amazing. Like, there's so many things that you can learn that are really quite astounding. And they're all within our capabilities. We're not taught to focus on that. But we're all highly intuitive. We're all telepathic. We can actually read each other's thoughts and, any number of things. Astral travel, teleport, like, you can learn to levitate, you can, whatever you're into. But I'm more about, not so much about the supernatural, is the result. Mm-hmm. Who cares if you can levitate? Can you help somebody feel better?
Right.
I think that's more important.
I can levitate, but my life sucks.
Right, yeah, exactly. And there's plenty of people like that. Yeah. Sorry, I just had to let my cat in.
I hear a little kitty.
Did you hear the meowing?
I did.
Yeah. That's neutral. Anyway,
tell me as we wrap this wonderful time up, and maybe or for maybe just a short time, we'll say, until another time, what is it that you think God would like us to know?
I think that at the end of the day, that all is well, just to relax. That's what I think. Like, it's okay. It's nothing we have to do. Or maybe you're not here. That's maybe what God would say. You're not here. Don't worry.
You're safe.
So, you're safe. You're eternal spirit. You cannot be anything but safe. Yeah. And you're not a body. So you must be safe, because without a body, suddenly we have no problems, no fears, no issues, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Marianne. I really appreciate your presence and work in the world. If anybody wants to get a hold of Marianne Rogers, past life regressionist, spiritual intuitive, a number of other skill sets that she's been given and worked at. Get a hold of her at mariannrogers.com, which is MaryannRodgers.com. All right.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. You can also call her directly if you want, 949-742-2059. And her lovely accent. She's from New Zealand. That's a side note, but that's cool.
Thank
and
you.
And check her out. She is a lovely, lovely person with a wonderful way, and I think it'd be wonderful to connect with you. And thank you so much.
Thank you. It was awesome. That hour went really quick.
It's really quick. I know.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll have to do it again, and we can talk about what I was texting you about, maybe exemplifying something that you do. I don't know.
And I love your topic. I love that the focus is on being awake. So that's good. That's exciting.
It is exciting. Yeah. It's a good topic.
Yep.
All right. We'll talk to you soon, Marianne.
All right. Thanks so much, Jevon.